Hello, and welcome to another episode of Solipsist Watched. I'm your host, the Social Solipsist, and this week I watched Spencer from 2021. Spencer is not what it immediately appears to be. It is a film about the former Princess Diana. And I don't think we can talk about the film without talking about Diana Spencer, Princess of Wales. I need to lead into this and say that I am the furthest thing from a royalist. I find the entirety of the British monarchy and all monarchies in general to be archaic and bizarre in their continued existence. The continued amount of money that the Brits give to the royal family to keep them alive, it was as what is basically a PR stunt, is totally bizarre to me. And yet at the same time, the actual political power they wield is also still bizarre. I don't understand it, but they probably don't want to rewrite their constitution. So fair enough, I guess. The British royal family is weird, and especially in the last few years has gotten a particularly bad reputation. And this is a relatively, I don't want to say it's a new thing, but it's becoming especially notable in the last few years, that more and more people are sort of actively against them rather than just passively not caring. Diana, I don't know that much about the royal families in general or about Diana, but if you were alive in the 90s, at some point you knew about the death of Diana, Princess of Wales. I did not know much of anything about her until a few years ago. I don't even remember why I ended up accruing some knowledge of her background, but every once in a while she would also come up as a figure who was generally very well regarded and respected and thought of as a nice person, and the potential, sort of mourned as the potential new face of the royalty lost before her time. By all accounts, she seems to have been a very nice person who used her presence in the royal family to try and further charitable efforts and raise awareness of things that were not common to the royal family or to anyone in general. So things like AIDS, leprosy, mental health issues, landmines, all these other things are all things I am aware of her being an advocate for, and or an advocate for awareness of, I should say. I didn't know much about her personally, and obviously not being particularly interested in the royals, never really delved into it. I expected this film to be essentially a biopic. She's a character, or a person, I should say, well known enough and well respected enough that I really expected this to be more of a biopic than anything. And it's hard to unpack what it actually is. It is historical fiction. And it is focused on a very specific period of her life. It is not beginning to end of any kind. It is literally presented over a matter of days. I had to do a little searching after watching it to try and find out what the basis in the reality was. And while the royal family in general, and Diana included, despite her being a little bit more rebellious from the standards of the family, the accuracy of the portrayal is up for debate. What is not probably not up for debate are the issues that she is struggling with in the film and was struggling with in real life. More than anything, what this film is a portrayal of is a woman struggling with mental and physical health issues and the stresses put on her by the constraints of royal life and the oppressiveness of the media that surrounds the royal family and a bunch of other conditions under which she's really struggling. And most of the film is a character study, imagining her struggles and her internal workings during this period of her life. I think it's, in a lot of ways, really excellent. Rarely have I seen a character study that so strictly focuses on a singular character. More often than not, even in a completely fictitious character study, you have your main character and they play off of other people, and so much of what builds that character study is the nature of the interactions. Because of the subject matter at hand, much of this film is her reflecting off of no one or off of nebulous systems and feelings that she's getting from the environment that she's in. And that's not to say they couldn't have gone the other way, but the filmmakers and the writers deliberately wrote this such that the focus is on her. And it's really not for a substantial chunk of the movie, there's almost nobody else of note present. And it slowly sort of opens out a little bit more, but still keeps very, very focused on our main character. I'm just going to jump straight in and say this is an incredible credit to Kristen Stewart. The performance she puts on is really very good. And just as a side note, I am very glad that both Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson have escaped the shadow of Twilight, because they're both excellent actors. And that series and their acting in it easily could have buried their careers forever. So I'm glad to see they've both escaped. And interestingly, both ended up in a lot of smaller, more artsy films where I think they really get to shine as quality character actors. So her performance is really very good. I don't really know much of Diana. By all accounts, both the general public and apparently people close to Diana said that her performance is like the closest thing anyone's ever seen to really portraying her. That does get to sort of something about the design, which is that while Kristen Stewart doesn't look like Diana, she looks. There's a resemblance, but it's not like they weren't looking for somebody who looked just like Diana. And I think that's totally fine and the right call. There are a bunch of other, with this being the royal family, the other members of the royal family show up, and none of them look dramatically different than their real world counterparts, but they're not trying to find actors who look exactly like them either. These are not impersonators or anything like that. And none of them are putting on a particular voice. I don't think, by all accounts, I watched a few short clips of speeches by Diana, and to me, there is some difference in the sound between between Stewart's performance and the real Diana, but like as far as some of the basic elements of her sort of the that sort of up noble dialect thing that she's got going on sounds quite close. And so I'll leave that to, the more experienced to say whether it's good or not. And they do say it's good. So fine. I do find her voice a little distracting, but that's entirely on me. I think there are some, weirdly, the British accents that people often say are like incomprehensible. I have no problem, like understanding but for some reason the royal accents in particular are a struggle for me. Anyway, I digress. Excuse me. Kristen Stewart's performance is really quite good. I think everybody around her also puts on a really good performance. A lot of the acting is extremely subtle. It's extremely quiet and sort of it's overwhelming in its subtlety, if that makes any sense. A lot of the film's themes are about the strictures of royal life and Diana's struggle to meet with those. And so most of the film, people are either talking in very low voices or they're whispering. There's, with a few exceptions, like there's very little that's above a hushed tone. But I think that's all the more credit to both the acting and the directing to say that works really well to set this, these like sort of oppressive, these oppressive themes that are really hard to watch, not because they're a problem, but because you feel that psychological pressure. The film comes together so well to express indirectly the things that Diana feels, and really get you to believe what she's feeling and be in her shoes and not pity her. It doesn't stray towards a pitiable state or something where she's, so overwhelmed or something like that she doesn't have to be rescued or anything like that. But the nature of the scenarios and the quality of the presentation really sets the stage for Stewart's performance. What I do struggle with a little bit is a lot of it is in very literal metaphor, where if it was not done so well, I might say that it's got a lot of things that are very on the nose, because it has these elaborate visual metaphors and sort of imagined scenarios that aren't real, but are like a visual representation of what's going on in Diana's head. And it was a little jarring for me, because it's hard to tell, especially because this is historical fiction, what is supposed to be literal and what isn't. You don't really know until after the fact. And I don't think I would want them to change it or give us more visual indicator that, oh, this is her inside her head, or this is, hallucination or whatever. I think that would detract from it more. But it was a struggle from time to time to go, oh, I need to back up, reset to the previous scene, because this scene isn't real. It's entirely in very strong visual metaphor for her experiences. And again, the struggle is all the harder because of how oppressive the film can be to watch. It's I don't want to say any more because I don't want to spoil it. This movie didn't actually perform very well. Well, I don't know if it performed to the expectations of the studio or anything like that. It's a reasonably small production, allegedly $18 million, but only made like 23.5 million in the box office. That's not that surprising. It is a fairly niche film, and it's not an easy film to watch. It's not going to be a like super popular film, but I am surprised how poorly it performed. I don't know. I would think, especially in Britain, maybe it would have performed better, but I don't know. But moving on from sort of the performance and the visual metaphor, the story overall is it's very loose. There isn't a lot to tell about it, and not a lot to spoil about the nature of the story and the context, because it is very brief and really not the part that matters about the film. The reason for watching the film is watching a representation of Diana's mental evolution and processing of the events and people around her. And so I can't fault it in any way for that. I think in that way it's a very pure character study. Whereas a lot of character studies I've talked about have more to do, have a more clear sort of beginning, middle, and end sort of arc of a story. This one, the arc of this story is entirely in the main character's mental processes and how her views change and evolve, and how she gets from one place to another. I can't help but draw some comparisons to The Favorite, which I watched, way back. Well, it's close to probably two years ago now, which is a very different movie, and they're both very good, but there's some parallels, not just the royal nature of them, but in terms of a lot of different things. I don't want to specify too much. If you like The Favorite, I would probably recommend this too, but for different reasons. Speaking of which, though, the cinematography is really quite good. It is not flashy. It is not trying to go for anything spectacular. It is avoiding a lot of the sort of cinematic spectacle that might be present in somebody who is trying to show off their skills as a director more. This is directed by Pablo Larraín, who I have not watched anything else he's directed. I have heard his name before in reference to some of his other films. And I may have to go back and watch another of his films from a few years ago that is sort of in a similar vein to this one. But he's quite well regarded, I think, in the sort of cinematic circles that I dabble in. And so I'm very impressed with him as a director for not being over the top, but still being incredibly visually interesting in very subtle ways. This goes in conjunction with the sets and costumes, which are incredible all the way through. The the nature of the Royals as a theatrical piece. Really, if we want to get accurate about it, and the things that they wear and the places that they are, that could easily be something that was skimped on. But I think that pretty much every scene is visually fantastic in one way or another. A lot of the film is actually quite dour and ugly, but a lot of that is deliberate in a matter of portraying, visually portraying the feelings of the character, as well as the sort of, I don't like this word because it gets bandied around a lot, but the aura of the place and the aura of her feelings and reflections upon where she is and who she's with. And so even in these dark, gloomy, dour, depressed places and visuals, it takes a lot of skill to make an ugly thing beautiful or a beautiful thing ugly, and to have it be properly reflective of a character's mental state. You're not just composing a picture, especially in something like a character study. You're not just composing a picture of a place. You're composing the way that the characters understand that place and the way you want the viewers to understand that place. And so the synthesis of everything I've mentioned really brings it all together. The most excellent part of this film, though, is the score and the sound design. For all I said earlier about everybody talking in hushed tones or whispers, this film does get loud sometimes, and it is a credit to... I complain all the time about bad sound editing, but this film has some incredible sound editing, backed up by a really incredible score written by Johnny Greenwood, of all people, who I don't know if he's still active as like a musician, like a touring musician, or if he mostly does film now. But yeah, lead guitarist of Radiohead does film scores, and what do you know, they're really good. It is sort of an interesting mix of like sort of semi-classical piano compositions and these sort of noir, jazzy, like kind of smoky lounge kind of compositions. And it's not just one or the other. They flow into each other in a really incredible way. Some of the pieces are, a lot of the pieces are just to sort of set the scene, set the feeling of a place. But others are very reflective of the mental state of the main character. And again, I don't want to spoil the feeling of anything. But there are a bunch of moments throughout the film where the music ramps up in a way that in another film or in one that was more poorly edited, could feel like, why is the music so loud? But the music really serves in place of dialogue. There's not a huge amount of dialogue in the film. In place of dialogue to tell the feelings, tell the story, and in conjunction with really good mixing to make sure that in the scenes where the music is overwhelming, that it does not actively drown out the rest of the film or the rest of the soundscape. It's just through and through really incredible. And if for no other reason, I would recommend the film for the score. It probably, I would say at least some of the tracks probably stand on their own as, just things to listen to. I'm not usually one to listen to soundtracks, or, composed soundtracks. But this one's really excellent. So I got to figure out what else, has a Johnny Greenwood score on it and go hunt down more of it. So that really brings so many of these other elements, which are already strong and well tied together on their own, to another level, and really amplify, no pun intended, the elements of the film. Through and through, I'm very impressed. But I have to say, when I finished the film, the oppressive feeling of it is a lot. And I felt very overwhelmed by it. I didn't feel like I necessarily had absorbed all of it, or I don't know. I don't want to say I left unsatisfied, because that was not it. The overwhelming nature of the content, and watching somebody struggle inside their own head for that long, and in conditions where many people are not being helpful, or even if people are being helpful, anybody who has had mental health issues can say, even when people around are trying to be helpful, it doesn't mean that the issues go away, or that the help is helpful. So the overall themes and content are hard to watch. And I think this is a film I will probably come back to and watch again, but not for quite a while. You have to brace yourself for it a little bit. And I was not braced, because I didn't know what kind of film it was. And so I think I might have a new level of reflection on it, knowing the content therein, and being able to absorb that much more of the subtlety and detail on display, if I return to it another time. So yeah, I highly recommend it. I don't know that it necessarily bears a content warning, but it's got, heavy subjects, and I don't think there'd be any shame for anyone to, at the very least pause in the middle of it and need to go take a break. But I highly recommend it if you're at all interested in, well, just good filmmaking. Anyway, thank you guys for watching another episode of Solipsist Watched. I've been your host, the Social Solipsist, and I'll see you guys next time.